Mr. Arvind Gupta, Head and Co-founder, Digital India Foundation. Dr. Swami Sivasubramanian, VP, Database Analytics and Machine Learning, AWS. Mr. Sriram Raghavan, Vice President, IBM Research, AI. Mr. Rajan Anandan, Managing Director, Peak 15. Mr. P. Anandan, Founder, AI Matters Advisors. I would now like to share a recorded message from Dr. Seth Center. Dr. Seth Center is a Deputy Envoy, Office of the Special Envoy for Critical and Emerging Technology. He also served as Director for National Security Strategy and History on the White House's National Security Council staff and as an historian on the NSC staff and for the State Department.
Hello everyone, I'm Seth Center, Acting Envoy for Critical and Emerging Technologies at the U.S. Department of State. Joining you from Washington, D.C. Sorry I can't join you in person. I was actually in Delhi last week for the Global Technology Summit, which was a terrific experience, and I could not, unfortunately, justify staying an additional week, but I'm thrilled to be here with you. First off, let me thank Mr. Arvind Gupta for emceeing this important session on AI innovation and commercialization. Mr. Gupta has been a leader in crafting Digital India and has always been a long-standing, strong advocate for the U.S.-India Strategic Digital Partnership, as of course are we. Thank you also to the Confederation of Indian Industry and to the U.S.-India Business Council for organizing this event. It's a terrific opportunity for all of us to be together and think about all of the ways we can collaborate and drive our shared interest in developing AI together. I'm excited to address particularly this session on AI innovation and commercialization, in part because it's the most exciting topic in tech around the world right now. Also because we have some of the really great tech companies and AI companies in the world in the United States, firms like AWS and IBM who are on this panel. And of course, as much because there's an exciting AI ecosystem in India, and I had the pleasure of meeting many of you last week. I think one of the most important and instructive facts about the Indian approach to AI is that Indians are some of the most optimistic people in the world when it comes to AI. In fact, polls suggests that Indians are twice as optimistic as Americans about the prospects for AI enhancing their lives and the prospects for positive innovations from AI. And I think that presents an incredible opportunity for all of us to collaborate together. This week, of course, India is the host of GPAI, which is an incredible opportunity to drive strategic technology collaboration between the United States and India and to establish India's leadership in many of these areas in a broader multilateral setting. Last week, as I said, I was here with the Deputy National Security Advisor, John Feiner, as part of the ISET Tech Dialogue, which is a reminder of just how important technology is to the U.S.-India relationship overall. And I think that is worth stressing in the context of this conversation. I think it was the last week in our experience in ISET. We're really working so closely with our Indian partners in AI and a whole range of emerging technologies is that there is no more important partner in the Indo-Pacific for the consequential future that the United States sees for that region than the U.S.-India relationship. And in many ways, technology and innovation are at the core of that partnership. And of course, most conspicuously, I think all of us here can agree that the private sectors and collaboration across those private sectors is the core of that technology relationship. Over 90,000 Indian startups since 2016. It's a remarkable success story and one I think that opens up even more opportunities for us to collaborate in the future as we think about AI. I think when we think about the context in the United States and what's happening, I might just spend a minute or two talking about how we see the relationship between innovation, opportunity, and risk. Of course, trying to strike that balance is the defining policy challenge that we face around the world. Our European partners just last week at least provisionally have agreed to the AI Act as one approach, and I thought I might lay out the U.S. approach, which seeks to strike that balance and continue driving forward with innovation, continue to make sure that the private sector is in the lead, and continue to stress the importance of international partnerships, both public sector and private sector. If you think back, we're now exactly 1 year from the ChatGPT release and this entirely new transformation of the conversation around AI. And for the first several months, the United States took a deliberate approach, recognizing that rushing too fast towards government intervention or regulation was a risky path, but also recognizing that many of the concerns expressed around these powerful new AI systems needed to be confronted. And we worked closely with the private sector here in the United States to create a framework, technically grounded, rigorous, on how best to manage and govern these systems. We got 15 of the leading AI firms in the United States to agree to sort of voluntary commitments to ensure transparency, measurement, red teaming, cybersecurity. In order that we could make sure that we could leverage the benefits of these powerful technologies and allow our private sector to continue to innovate even while managing the risks. That, of course, then led into what we recognized was a necessary multilateral effort with our partners in Japan and the G7. We successfully achieved a code of conduct for advanced AI developers, which in many ways mirrored some of the thinking we developed in public-private partnership in the United States. India, of course, was at Bletchley Park with our UK partners, where we further expanded that notion and tried to strike this balance between innovation and regulation. And at home, even as all of this diplomatic work was going on, the United States and President Biden signed an executive order on artificial intelligence, which is really a comprehensive framework for thinking across all of the components of an AI ecosystem that one would want to get right, from government applications, responsible government applications, to thinking through the labor impacts, to making sure that even as we innovate as quickly as possible and commercialize AI applications, that we take proper cognizance of privacy, take proper cognizance of equity, take proper cognizance of all of the impacts they're going to have on our societies, even as we encourage continued innovation and market competition in AI. And so we think that that is the kind of approach that is going to work well across the world. I was pleased to hear in my own conversations last week the ways in which both the Indian government and the Indian private sector are excited about moving forward in AI, excited about looking for partnerships with U.S. firms, excited about harnessing and leveraging the incredible startup ecosystem in India, and excited about moving not just into software and applications, but to deeper levels of AI, the enabling infrastructure, pursuing foundation models, really the future of a broader set of AI technologies. And I think together, the United States and India will drive the AI revolution that we're living through. That revolution will drive the technology era that we're entering into, in which AI is converging with a whole series of other technologies. And if we can successfully drive AI innovation and technology innovation, it will put us in a much stronger strategic position as partners as we confront a much different world than the one that many of us anticipated we would be living in today. So good luck to everyone. Thank you so much to the USIBC for allowing me to make a few remarks. Terribly sorry I couldn't be there in person, but next time I'm in India, if there's an opportunity, I would love to participate with you. Thank you very much and have a great session.
Thank you. Ananta, should we start from here? Good, thank you, Jay. Good afternoon, everybody. Couple of opening points, logistics-wise. We are going to have a very interactive session. I have an excellent panel here, which is a mix of venture capital, research, and some of us have been doing research in AI when it was not called AI, and have a long pedigree, academic and teaching and policy experience in that. So we have a mix of great mix of keynotes and fireside chat panelists. I'm lucky and I'm thankful to CII and USIBC for putting this together. The team at METI has done an incredible job of putting the logistics and getting all these people together today. So my job is pretty simple. I have to just ask some of the questions. But the second point is, We'll finish at 1:30, so everybody can have lunch on time, number one. Two, I am a professor, so please be ready for a lot of questions. And be attentive in this class. It's going to be a master class. So I'm going to ask questions to my fellow panelists and to all of you. You will get a chance to ask questions to us, but the reverse can also apply. So just be attentive. With that, we are going to start our first keynote, and let me invite Dr. Swami Subramaniam from AWS to give his opening remarks. I've asked all the keynote speakers to keep it 8 to 10 minutes so that we have some time for interactive sessions. And two, we are going to talk about, we're not going to talk about only AI in terms of core AI. Here, this session is intended for two things, as Dr. Seth started. Number one is, how does AI impact all of us? And India's model has been very different in technology. By the end of G20, by the end of the global technology summits that we've done, one thing is clear. There's a new term that Oxford Dictionary or somebody who's going to put it in the lexicon next year. It's called DPIs, Digital Public Infrastructure. That didn't exist 2 years ago. And suddenly it's the talk of the world, not town. So given that, where we are balancing between innovation, regulation, and creating a great startup ecosystem, our partnership with the US is very strong on all those fronts, and it continues to grow. We're both the largest democracies in the world. So how do we see AI scaling up? We have some hyperscalers on the panel. They're going to talk about that. And how do we see AI really becoming, from the research 30 years ago to really what we have seen? Is the ChatGPT moment was the inflection point for AI. I know everybody now I also do a little bit of venture capital, and everybody, a lot of funds we see have suddenly transformed themselves into an AI fund. But that's okay, because every industry goes through a transformation. So this panel, this discussion for the next 1.5 hours is around the scaling up, the commercialization, and how does it help meet the sustainable development goals, and while keeping the environment in mind. And COP28 just finished yesterday, and green is a world, and then next big thing. So I have a few panelists and keynote speakers who are going to talk about that. So that is the context of this. If this is not the chapter or the class that you signed up for, you're in the wrong room. So we're all okay? This is what we're going to discuss broadly. Good. Thank you. Thank you for all the speakers. With that, Dr. Swami, can I invite you to be the first person to take stage and spend the next 8 to 10 minutes talking about what you have to talk.
I hope everyone can hear me. All right. Okay.
Can we close the doors, please, in the end? Just shut the doors. Thank you, Jake.
Oh, sorry. This switched. Okay. Okay. All right. While I'm not a professor, I'll try to be very brief and going. First of all, hello everyone. Really excited to be here. Thank you for having me with you today. So I actually have been in cloud data AI guy for, I don't know, probably 15 years. I started some of the core set of people who built what came to be known as AWS, or the first cloud computing, so where I probably built some of the core services. Now, having seen cloud, the birth of cloud and the transformation it did to IT industry, I think it's fair to say we are currently standing at the edge of another important technological era, an era in which AI is really augmenting every aspect of what we are building in terms of technology, human intelligence, and also really fueling new creativity and ingenuity from the humans. So, and that's what makes generative AI especially really exciting, in my opinion. So, You might be wondering, why is all this hype around ML and AI? What's special? Because technically ML and AI has been around for more than 20 years. And it is true, machine learning and artificial intelligence, especially deep learning, has really changed the way how machine learning has been adopted. And we have had really impressive innovations in the last 2 decades. But with generative AI, a few things are changing. One, gone are the days where we are doing like segmented data science teams where each team is focusing on a separate problem. They build their own models to a centralized model that can be quickly, in an agile manner, customized to different settings. But more importantly, in my opinion, the biggest thing with this new era with generative AI is it is shifting the relationship between humans and technology to one of intelligence augmentation. And this one, especially the co-evolution of humans and technology, I find it incredibly exciting, because this synergy between humans and technology, while we are very excited because it can automate many back-end office tasks, or it can create new customer experience, all these co-evolution of humans and technology, this synergy is possible because of the synergy that happens under the hood between data and generative AI. And that's what makes this entire relationship between data and Gen AI to be one of the most exciting things. Because why is it so? Because already the massive explosion of data is one of the fundamental reasons why generative AI and these foundational models exist in the first place. Without that, these foundational models wouldn't have been built. And then the second thing is, as these technologies evolve over time, we need these data to be customizable for your business and your use case. And that's why I find the synergy between humans, data, and Gen AI to be extremely powerful. So how can you unlock the power of this technology to actually do amazing innovations? I kind of put them in 3 buckets. One is, as a developer or as an organization, to drive innovation, you need easy-to-use tools and access with the choice of best-in-class foundational models. I'm of the opinion no one foundational model will rule the world. Because if you look back 6 years ago in deep learning, everybody used to swear out that this Caffe or TensorFlow, they all are going to be the default standard. But look where we are now. So now there is new framework that is constantly coming every day. So the same thing is also going to be true. What developers want is access to the best-in-class foundational models and pick the best tool for the right job. But more importantly, it's not just about the foundational models. It is about how do you use it to couple with your data and do it in a secure fashion. And the second thing is, it's not actually just about APIs and tools. You also need to democratize access to the education at a global scale. Because things like prompt engineering and so forth is nowhere even in anybody's vocabulary. So it's like prompt engineers are like a robo-psychologist, if you think about it. So, and the third thing is that you need to accelerate adoption to these organizations in a big, meaningful way. For that, it's not just about tools and education. You also need to reskill existing engineers to think about how to program against LLMs, or even data scientists. And these are some of the big things we need to do. So now, what do we do from AWS to help some of it? I'm going to drive through each of those 3 buckets quickly, so I won't get into all of these. To begin with, what are the tools AWS provides when it comes to driving some of these innovation? We like to think of it as a 3-layered stack. I did a 2-hour keynote at re:Invent, our annual developer conference. He just gave me 10 minutes, so I'm going to run through this quickly. So the first one is you need a rock-solid, high-performance, cost-efficient infrastructure to build these models. Model builders who want to build their own foundational models, they need best-in-class GPUs instances. That's where AWS has a deep partnership with NVIDIA. But we also build our own custom silicon with Trainium for training and Inferentia for inference as well, which has great price performance benefits. But it's not just about chips. You also need best-in-class software infrastructure. That's where we have SageMaker, which is an ML service that makes it super easy to build, train, and deploy. And it's the number one enterprise ML platform according to Kaggle users. And we have leading foundational model providers like AI21, Stability, Falcon, many of them using SageMaker to accelerate it. But not everyone wants to build their own models. In fact, you want the adoption to be people able to take these models and then put them to work quickly. And that's where we have Bedrock, which is, think of it as a models as a service, but you can securely customize for your application and build various use cases. And then, of course, not everyone even wants to build an application. They just want a Gen AI built inside. That's where we have Amazon Q, which is a Gen AI assistant for builders, Gen AI assistant for contact center workers, and for data analysts, and many more. So the key thing, irrespective of where you're adopting in each layer of the stack, one of the biggest takeaway I would want you to take about is data is the differentiator for Gen AI applications. If you think about it, almost all these foundational models are starting to exhibit similar kind of capabilities when it comes to natural language summarization, code reasoning, and so forth. So what is, as a company, as in business, what is your differentiator? Your differentiator is your data, which tells you about your business, your terminologies, your customers. And that is one of the key things, actually, we are using as a premise to drive some of our capabilities with things like Bedrock. And I'll double click on a few customer stories and patterns quickly. So since we launched Bedrock this year, more than 10,000 customers are already building on Bedrock. And this is not just in one vertical. This is across, let's say, Booking.com and travel to SAP Concur using to automate trip report summary to in the insurance industry with Sun Life and several others. Each of these customers have like really amazing story in terms of what they are doing with Gen AI and some of these foundational models. I'll double click on a few of them. One such customer is Happy Fox. So Happy Fox has more than 12,000 customers worldwide across 70 countries, and they are building enterprise-grade task automation for like help desk, live support, workflow automation, BI products. And now by adding Gen AI on top of Bedrock, they are able to do 40% automated resolution of support tickets and 20% improvement in agent productivity. Think about what it means for customer satisfaction, but also improving your cost structure. Another area where we are seeing Gen AI taking hold in a big way is around automotive industry. Toyota, for instance, uses several of AWS data services to collect data points from millions of vehicles on a daily basis. And they build that data lake, and they use it coupled with AI to alert potential issues when it comes to car safety or maintenance and so forth. Now, also by leveraging generative AI with tools like Bedrock, they are able to build an in-car personal assistant that will actually help the drivers to be able to do routine tasks. And then, of course, the other big area is around healthcare. One of the stories when it comes to healthcare that I'm really excited about is an innovation I saw around cancer care. If you look at across sub-Saharan Africa, there is one oncologist for around 3,200 cancer patients. As a comparison metric, there is 1 in 300 in the US. And when you look at this ratio, especially if you double-click and look at a particular country like Rwanda, there are like, for a population of 13.5 million, there are only 15 oncologists. So what does this mean for actual patients? The time it takes for them to even drive to go meet an oncologist, they end up actually self-throttling by saying, maybe I don't need to go until it's too severe. And that results in subpar healthcare, let alone very dangerous situation. So this is where one of the startups that built on top of Bedrock, that story is super inspiring. So we presented together in an UN event in September, where Huron AI. Their mission is very simple, where they use the power of Gen AI to extend cancer care and collect serious important data to help pharma companies so that they can make cancer care accessible irrespective of where people live. And they have already rolled out to areas like Kenya and Rwanda and many other places. And the CEO of Huron AI is an incredible startup founder. But now, I just shared some of the examples of the art of possible in terms of what innovations are already happening that are already mainstream or about to go mainstream. But to make this technology more accessible, it has to actually be accessible to more people. And you need to arm the workers of tomorrow. And that brings me to the second pillar, which is around investing in educational programs, where access to education on a global scale is key. So this is where we actually partnered in AWS Gen AI Scholarship with Udacity to provide up to $12 million in value for Udacity scholarships. And also we have been partnering on the AWS AI/ML scholarships as well to make these educations available for underprivileged and from other communities as well. If this works in terms of PowerPoints and video, I will share a 1-minute video of Vani Agarwal, who actually grew up only 30 miles from Delhi from here, and see if her own story, if it works. Okay, I will probably skip it instead of fighting PowerPoint. But the key thing you'll see is, as part of I grew up without access to technology. I'm a first generation who went to college in my family and broader family. So one of the areas I'm very passionate about is first time I saw a computer was, I think, high school, where I actually got very, very excited about the art of possible, because I used to write basic programs only when I was in paper. My compiler was probably my human brain and my CS teacher. So that access to technology is what is going to drive so much innovation, and that's what we are trying to drive in a big way. With so many other things like AI/ML digital courses, more than 100 of them, and many of them are free as well. And also, I'm a big believer in making technology more accessible in a fun way. So one of the things we created was something called Party Rock. It's an Amazon Bedrock playground, where it's a no-code interface. Any of you can actually build an application powered by Gen AI using this partyrock.aws. My 8-year-old daughter, during Thanksgiving dinner table, created a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory Gen AI app to create so many chocolates and so forth, so without writing any lines. So I encourage you all to check. And of course, if you're an enterprise who do not know how to get started, we also have a Gen AI Innovation Center to accelerate some of these your initiatives around Gen AI as well. So with that, let me pause and say thanks again for all your interest, and I hope many of you use some of these opportunity to go create some remarkable customer experiences innovation with Gen AI as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swami. Please. Thank you for keeping time also. I will ask questions later on depending on everybody's time. So let's keep the questions for later on. Can I now invite Sriram Raghavan from IBM to talk about foundational models and AI and whatever his take on AI is. Do you have a presentation?
Yes.
Can we bring up his presentation, please? In the meanwhile, while they're bringing up the presentation, Dr. Swami talked about data being the core of whatever AWS and Amazon is doing in the Bedrock side, and that is where to give a context, India is emerging as the data capital of the world. So we have to keep in mind why India plays such an important role in building these multilateral partnerships and collaborations across the world. So the most diverse set of data is coming from the group over here, and we should keep that in mind. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here and be part of this discussion. So I'm going to start with I think my view on what is this inflection point in AI and frame it very simply this way. Arvind, wearing his professor hat, can probably spend many hours on the progress we have had in AI technology. But to me, the simple takeaway is we're probably in the fourth era of AI, and we could dispute how many eras there are, that's a technical debate. But the way I like to think about it is we're moving from an era of AI being an algorithm or a technique or a tool into AI becoming a platform. So I view this as a platformization of AI as a technology. And that is profound because it means that the decisions you make when you build a platform, when done right, will have multiplicative positive effects. When done wrong, will also have multiplicative negative effects. So we are in that sort of defining moment, which is why I think we all see this inflection point. What we saw, with what happened a year before is an example. But I think the fundamental shift is profound from a set of tools and techniques into a platform on which you build solutions. And I think that's really a statement of maturity of AI technology. So in the time that I have, I wanted to really make only 3 points. One, I wanted to make a case, if you will, around the importance of open innovation in AI. And I will tell you why I believe that's an important conversation to have and what we're doing around it. Second is to offer a perspective. Yeah, I know this, one of the themes of GPAI overall has been around trusted responsible AI. And I wanted to offer a perspective on at least how we think about it at IBM and what we are sharing with policymakers and regulators across the globe on the attributes of a good framework for responsible AI. And lastly, a lot of the conversation in AI tends to be, including by many of us as commercial entities, around use cases that will obviously have monetary value and benefit in the next 6 months, a year, and there is plenty to do with respect to automation and productivity. But I do want to bring forward this notion of the impact on AI for science. And I believe that's a transformative potential that's worth tabling as well. As we think about productionizing and scaling AI, it's not only about scaling AI when it comes to better contact centers or more automated business first floors, but scaling science itself. And I wanted to have that as a third topic. So these are the 3 topics that I'll spend a few minutes on in the 10 minutes that I have. So first on open innovation in AI. AI technology, what we saw today, is built on the bedrock of, not to use too much of that word, on massive amounts of storage, compute, and data. So the natural force will drive centralization, because without the ability to bring together enormous data and compute, without the ability to harvest enormous amounts of capital and have skills, it is hard to play in the AI game. And market incentives will require you to raise the barrier. So one of the things that we have been, and I personally believe in, and IBM stands for, is around the importance of an open innovation ecosystem. And that to us involves, one, a global approach, very germane given we are a global partnership on AI. It involves a multi-stakeholder approach where the conversation around building, deploying, and creating AI embraces the entire ecosystem, from academia to industry labs to startups to, of course, enterprises and governments. The conversation around open becomes broader. A lot of the conversation around open in AI tends to be about either open source software and closed source software, or open models and closed models. But the AI ecosystem is much, much richer. There is benchmarks, there is data sets, there is safety testing. There is an entire set of things around AI that is important to be developed in the open so that every stakeholder has an opportunity to influence them. And finally, I do believe that a broader perspective will allow us to recognize that without an open innovation ecosystem, we run the risk of making AI safety an excuse to really clamp down on open innovation in AI. And that, I think, would be bad for all of us as society and across the globe. So it is with this motivation and importance for open innovation that just earlier this month, a number of us got together, over 50 founding members, established an alliance, the AI Alliance. It brings together stakeholders of all of those different varieties that I talked about, and it gives you a sense of the fact that the conversation on AI really needs to touch these kinds of players. Academic institutions, national labs, of course industry R&D, but this diversity, I believe, is a strength, because behind just the 50 founding members who have joined the AI Alliance is over $80 billion worth of R&D investment, 400,000 plus students that the Alliance touches, and over 1 million employees. And I believe that's an example of the type of open conversation that I believe is important for AI technology. And I hope that's a thread that we can continue to pull on, which I think is a slightly broader perspective than necessarily the AI use cases that we typically talk about and read about. So I just wanted to table this, and of course the Alliance is up and running, and we look forward, and if there's more interest, I'll be happy to have conversation offline. IBM and Meta were founding members of the Alliance, but this really is an alliance that represents a diverse set of global stakeholders. And here is an example of what the Alliance is looking to do. We are looking to really do 3 things. Build real things, and those build real things can be tools, they can be models, they can be metrics, they can be benchmarks, and a lot of this is happening already amongst some of the members of the Alliance. The intent to come together is to truly build it in the open and be informed by everybody's expertise and skill. And I'm not going to go through all of the focus areas, but I want you to recognize that we are taking a much richer view of what open in AI means. Open in AI is not just a conversation about whether a model should or should not be in open source. It is around all of the other things that make up AI, from skills to hardware diversity to the advocacy that's involved globally. And we see this as an important cornerstone moment in changing the AI narrative. So that's sort of my first topic on the importance of open AI innovation. The second element around responsible AI, and I want to offer again a perspective on responsible AI often is sometimes conflated, sometimes confused with sort of, in my mind, 3 related topics. There is a topic of trustworthy AI, which is in the domain of the technologists. How do I build more robust algorithms? How do I build algorithms to remove bias? That's technology. That's where the math, the computer scientists, the electrical engineers are going to create techniques and tools. That's trustworthy AI. At the other end of the spectrum is AI ethics, which is around what should be the right way to build AI. And that's a statement of policy, that's a statement of ethics, social norms and values. Technology has much less of a role to play, and that is where I think societal standards and moral values apply. And then governance is where they meet in the middle, where you say, look, I have made a set of decisions on how AI needs to grow. I have a set of tools and techniques to implement it. Governance is operationalizing it so that you can make those norms come alive. And so I think this framework is useful because it again illustrates for you why we need a diversity of stakeholders to do responsible AI. It cannot be just the technologists, it cannot be just the social scientists, but it requires these coming together to really not just decide what gets done, how it gets done, and the ability to measure and monitor it. So with this in mind, I wanted to share, at least from an IBM perspective, what we see as some important takeaways for consideration by policymakers. And we have been very vocal around sharing these principles, but I thought it was important to share it in this forum as well. One is, I think it is important to distinguish that what we need to think about from a regulation perspective is AI risk, not AI algorithms. It does not make sense to regulate a piece of math or a piece of technology. What it is you have to regulate the use of that technology in a use case context. And we approach here, we refer to this as precision risk-based regulation, where you recognize that the same underlying technology may be used to recommend better shoes for you or to recommend a better cancer treatment for you. And that is not to say the shoes are unimportant, but clearly the level of risk involved between these 2 use cases are dramatically different, and regulation needs to take that into account. We run the danger of not making that distinction, and I think that's an important one. Second is, I do believe it is important that AI creators and deployers and the AI value chain is becoming more complex. They are the people who have the data, there are the people who are able to build the models, there are the people who adapt and tune models, there are the people who build solutions on top of those models. That it is important that they are accountable, but recognizing the different roles they play in the value chain. Third one I will emphasize is what I said before. It is important that the frameworks that we took do encourage and do not stifle open innovation in AI. And then lastly, I do believe it is important to recognize, which will come to my third point, that open innovation for public benefit, especially in areas relevant to the advancement of science, has to be a cornerstone of how we think about AI policy. And that sort of brings me naturally, if you will, to the third topic that I want to go to. But before I do that, I did want to offer up, I know the screenshot may not be visible, but at IBM we have released what is called an AI Risk Atlas. And this is an effort to share broadly a way to think about risk in AI. It goes back to my previous conversation that there are many, many risks in AI. Not all risks apply in every use case context. Not all risks are equally pervasive or critical in every use case context. Is there an atlas that lets you think about those risks so that as you employ AI solutions, you understand what controls are needed? And this is something we offer up for consideration. It is something we use to inform our own products that we build and offer to clients for AI governance and responsible AI. But it is also something that we expect to evolve through the alliance and other mechanisms as we learn more about how to really think about AI risk. And it is, and what we do is we classify it in different categories: risk on input, risk in output, which risks are amplified, which risks are new because of generative AI, a way of thinking about AI risk broadly. And finally, let me talk about the last topic, which is personally something I'm very, very, very passionate about, which is, this is sometimes not the topics that get venture capital attention, because these are long-running topics. But it is clear that importance of innovation in science has never been more urgent. If you look at any of these icons, you can relate it to one of the problems facing humanity, whether it is climate change, the energy shortage, the importance of food safety, climate hazard, fire, so on. And each of these, while science is not the complete answer, is an important element of the answer. And forever, this scientific method that I think we've all learned in grad school or high school has been the way you did scientific discovery. You created questions, you studied, you created hypotheses, you tested, and this is how all of the innovations that we all see, from new materials to new ways to communicate, they've all been born behind this scientific method. What I think it is important to recognize is the impact that AI is having, will have on the scientific method. In particular, the acceleration that it is going to offer to the scientific method is going to be something we possibly are underappreciating right now, but which I believe will have an even bigger impact on humanity than potentially some of the use cases that we are thinking about. I mean, look at this. We talk about the ability of AI to work with natural language. We all probably experience it daily when we play with search engines or ChatGPT or any of those other things. But in no way is AI restricted only to language data. All of these data examples that you see, from text, tables, graphs, satellite images, chemical formulations, new kinds of molecular structure, sensor data, they are all amenable to AI. And imagine the possibilities when you start to apply AI to these domains and the impact it is going to have on how we are going to do scientific discovery. As a very
Sriram, can I,
Sure.
I'm conscious of time, but I'm going to ask you a question which you can probably answer right away. Where do you see, because IBM has done a lot of work in geospatial foundation models, especially on the slide that you've just presented. Can you tell us where are the implications in climate as you see it from an...
Absolutely, absolutely. So we've been partnering particularly with NASA and other agencies around building large-scale geospatial foundation models. We've even released some samples out in the open as a way to, to share with the community. And just to give you a sense, satellite data collected runs into the several hundreds and more petabytes, right? NASA probably will tell you they're sitting on 750 plus petabytes of data. Now, what we are doing as we build foundation models is open up a rich set of use cases, and I'm going to give you, Arvind, maybe 3 or 4 examples that we are working with. So one is we started working with NASA on examples like flood modeling, fire hazard tracking, burn mapping, which allows you to say, how do I think about deploying resources after a flood or when a fire is kicking off so that I send the right resources to the right locations by predicting where it is going to spread. And it is very hard to do on the ground when actually the event is happening, but it's much easier to do from data you collected from the satellite. Another example, we are working with Mohammed bin Zayed University for AI in the UAE, they're applying the geospatial foundation model to look at urban heat island mapping. What is the structure of urban cities that causes certain heat islands to develop dramatically with 3-4 degrees of centigrade average temperature higher than everything around them? How do you do design against it? Another example, the Kenyan government has a program they created where they wanted to plant 15 billion trees by 2032 in 10 years. Why? Because their water towers, the reservoirs, need to be kept green for that to happen. How are they going to track progress against it? So they are using geospatial foundation models that do biogas estimation or tree planting estimation to know where it's working, where more effort is needed.
Thank you.
So many such examples, but that's again an example where now we have made AI into a platform. By building it on satellite images, I just gave you 3 examples. There's probably 400 other examples waiting to be
Helpful. Thank you very much.
created on top. And I'll end with this. I will end with this chart that says, this scientific method that has powered every technological advance that we are all enjoying today is going to be revolutionized by AI. So as we think about this topic of productionizing and scaling AI, let's make sure to embrace both the commercial use cases as well as the use cases of AI for science.
Thank you.
With that, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sriram. I'm now going to invite Dr. Anandan for his talk and his thoughts on this. He's led Vadhwani AI Institute in India, and before that Microsoft, am I right?
Yeah, Microsoft Research.
Microsoft Research. So we have a person who's really worked in India and across the world to share his expertise with us.
So, yeah, good. Okay, now I'm going to take a different take as, my last part of my career, maybe 15 years, is really focused on understanding how technology can serve poor and underserved communities in the world, not so much about mainstream commercial market applications. And, the question is very relevant for AI, obviously, and if I did not believe that AI would be very helpful in this, I wouldn't be here. This is based on actually work done by a bunch of different organizations. Just wanted to give them some acknowledgement. And so just a little background, I have been an AI person doing AI scientist for 40 plus years, and half of that time in the US, half of the time in the year here. But even as recently as 15 years ago, I would not have guessed we would be here having a conversation about the impact of AI in everyday life, nor the risks of AI. I always thought it's something going to be in the future, forever in the future, but glad to be here. It's one of those things, when you work in the field for so many years, it's very rewarding to see that your field has come to this stage, although I may not be there much longer. So the first use case is from my colleagues in IPRD Solutions based in New York. Pregnancy risk, addressing pregnancy risk in Nigeria. The key things you have to do is really find the mothers, bring them to the clinic, and one of the big challenges is really malaria, so give them malaria nets and make sure that they are distributed, availability of malaria nets and where they should be given. But this traditionally was done by 3 different workflows. One which is to antenatal care, find the mothers. The other is the survey of the malaria net. And the third is the family survey on where they are, how many kids and what resources they had. So they never talked to each other very well. And the solution that had to be come up with is really one of continuous innovation where we integrate these 3 things and create a system and then give sort of like a landscape view for the care providers and the officials of what's going on. It may seem a little bit obvious because any sort of system solutions you have to do this, but the critical thing is when you work in the global south, nothing is given. There's no single stakeholder who has all of the resources, so you end up having to cobble together from multiple places and bring technology from multiple sources and integrate it together. And when you finish doing all of that, there's a small portion of this where you can do the analytics in order to predict where the nets have to be given, where the risks are higher and what action you can take. But below that is this huge system effort that you have to do. The second example is something that's from Art Park here, which is really to address the challenges with respect to dengue and in fact prediction of the outbreaks and what kind of actions that have to be taken. Now once again, this is not a problem that lies in one place because there are multiple data sources, health data sources, weather conditions, environmentals, and in order for you to actually address the problem, you have to know where people are moving and spreading the disease. You might all remember COVID. In fact, there was a precursor to this work that was done during the COVID pandemic, and this is kind of being built in again. So you have to bring in all those different resources, and you have to find different places to store the data and develop them. And in the end, you have to work with the officials and the people who provide care on the ground in order to provide the right type of information at the right time for them to handle it. Once again, it's not a problem where you can take an AI solution that you develop in the laboratory and apply, but one that you have to customize and build. And again, the analytics, which is the part where you make all the predictions, really has to ride on top of the bulk of work that's being done below it in terms of system development and system integration. The third use case is being done by Digital Green here in India. And more recently, they have developed actually a chatbot based on LLMs. But prior to that, Rikin, who's the founder of Digital Green, has been working for more than 15 years on extension workers and how to increase the capacity of extension workers, how to increase the quality of advice that they were giving. In the earlier days, it was just extension workers going to farms, individually disposing advice, very much out of context, and there were not enough of them. They were not enough able to reach all the places. But one of the things that Digital Green had done over the 15 years is really to collect farmer-generated videos where they talk about their practices, that they would then use the extension agents network to take it to other villages and discuss with them. And they found, in fact, farmers' reception to this type of community knowledge was much, much better, and they were actually adopting practices a lot more. But it's a very tedious kind of work, but the one nice thing that happened is over 7,000 videos came out of it, which has been widely viewed by people. This becomes an additional knowledge source. Recently, when LLMs became interesting, Rikin looked at this and said, I can actually translate all of this knowledge that I have collected into potentially a chatbot, which will actually talk to the farmers directly and to the extension agents, not having to rely on actually taking these videos around, but potentially contextualized, informed knowledge on top of one of the commercially available LLMs that you can build in order to develop something that's customized. But to do this required all of the foundation of the videos, incorporating the contextualized knowledge, and then delivering the solution through the extension worker system. Why am I talking about these three examples? The key thing that you learn about all of these, doing this, and I've done similar work when I was in Vadvani Institute for Artificial Intelligence the last few years, it takes radical collaboration, because the capacity to develop technology lies with people like me, people who are sitting here, who know how to build AI solutions, system development. But the capacity to implement them often does not lie with us. We don't know how to go into the rural areas and villages and actually deliver the solutions. We don't have the incentives to do it. But there are organizations, many of them are nonprofits, that are actually doing it. So they have to be brought together. And then, of course, experts who know the domain problems, health experts, agriculture experts, they have to be folded in. And of course, government decision makers and stakeholders, because this is a public problem, a global south problem. Nothing is going to happen without government getting involved. It takes an amazing amount of collaboration by these different entities to solve this problem. And you cannot just do it in isolation. It has to be built on systems that exist, or you have to build them, data repositories that you have to actually go and build and collect. And they have to be embedded in an existing set of use case solution networks so that people will actually adopt it. They're not going to just take it because you give it. They do it because it fits in with their workflow and what they're required to do. We learned a bunch of lessons. There's a mistake in the slide. I put it in because I want you to know that it's not LLM who did this. I actually wrote this, but I'll let you figure out. But the basic thing is to understand, is this really the right use case? And will AI solve it? Is there data to do it? And will it be accepted by the stakeholders? It can be threatening to them. And are there systems in place, that you can use to develop and deploy and scale the solutions? And this is a fact that I found in every attempt that we have made to develop technology or AI innovations, and this is going to continue. And as much as we are celebrating the progress, the hard work for Global South will continue to remain. And this is why GPAI is very exciting. I just want to share one more thing. Most recently, I finished writing a 70-page paper on the landscape for LLMs and LMICs. And what are the different use cases? Like you guys, triaging. See, one of the problems in Global South is the lack of human expert resources and reach. And this is exactly where these kind of agents, conversational agents, can fill in the gap. But however, to do that, you have to identify the right users and right use cases that are acceptable. We talk about in this paper, and this is, if you want to read the paper, just scan the QR code. It's available online. Basically talks about not just the way in which the solutions can be used, but what it would take to actually develop a whole ecosystem of such solution development and to deploy them. Thank you.
Thank you. And I can personally, Dr. Anandan, talk about digital green. I've been seeing their progress for the last 15 years. I think the kin came from Microsoft Research. Yeah, so it's excellent in how they have evolved into a farmer chat project. So the great examples on solving for the global south. And that's one of the big things that we all want to discuss today is, and keep discussing, is that while, a lot of things are happening, you have the hyperscalers, you have the modelers, you have the regulators, the policymakers, you also need the real use cases, which are solving the societal problems, societal technology. With that, I'm going to come to Rajan Anandan. And to Rajan, I have asked one question, that how do we fund all of this? How do VCs see this? The VCs fund the use cases, the business cases. And how does Rajan, from his perspective of being a venture capitalist, the head of Google in India, and many more things, ex-Microsoft also, sees this as he is seeing India in 2024 and going forward?
Thank you, Arvind. Hi, everyone. I'm between you and an awesome panel and lunch. How many of you are actually AI founders? Founders building in AI? Entrepreneurs? Okay, there's about maybe 8 or 10 of you. So I think since you asked me this question, I'm going to focus my whole talk. I wanted to go last because I wanted to see what everybody else said and then see what might be relevant. So I think for those of you that are not looking to raise funding, actually it's a great time to be building an AI company. In fact, Dr. Anandan, you'd be very excited that one of your former team members launched a company called Sarvam, and we were fortunate to be seed investors in Sarvam. They're building an Indic language LLMs for India, where they want to build this population scale systems to solve some of India's problems that Dr. Anandan talked about. So I'm going to actually talk about what are investors like us. I'm a partner at Peak 15 Capital. We were formerly Sequoia Capital, India and Southeast Asia. We became independent from India for the world, Arvind, as Peak 15 about 6 months ago. We have 400 active companies in India. About 100 of them are software product companies from India that are targeting the world. Usually when we say India to the world, by the way, we mean India to the US. And of the 100, 25 of them are AI companies, right? So I think the first thing to keep in mind is that investors like us in India have been investing in AI for quite some time. I think one of you mentioned that, AI, I graduated from MIT in the early 90s. I was working on neural networks. So I think this certainly goes back at least 30, if not 40 years. So what I'll do is I'll take maybe 8-10 minutes to talk about 8 minutes to talk about what are investors looking for, and I'm going to come at this from an Indian context because if you're investors, you can actually invest in entrepreneurs actually in your in the markets that you're in. I'm going to start this with a little story. Okay, I want to take you all back to 1981. I do realize about 30% of this room wasn't born in 1981. That's cool. 1981, the city of Pune, 7 engineers leave their safe jobs and start a company. It's a technology company. 1993, this company goes public. The year before they went public, 12 years after they were founded, they had 10 crores of revenue. And in their IPO, and by the way, those of you I see, there are probably 3 or 4 of you that maybe don't know what crores are. 8 crores is $1 million today, so 10 crores is called $1.25 million. It's a tiny amount of revenue. They raised 13 crores, which is about $1.5 million. Okay? What's the company? Any guesses? Oh, all right, terrific. Infosys. By the way, for those of you who are entrepreneurs, keep in mind, 12 years after founding, Infosys had 10 crores of revenue. And they went public and they raised 13 crores. It's pretty interesting because today we kind of look at a company that has 10 or 15 crores of revenue and say, that's not much. Are you kidding me? As we stand today, it's 2023. Infosys has 1.5 lakh crore of revenue. That's $18 billion is the last fiscal year. And a market cap of 6 lakh crore. That's 70 billion US dollars. 2 of the top 5 technology services companies in the world are Indian, and 5 out of the top 10 are Indian. Why am I talking about this? Because India built a $200 billion industry by applying technology to solve the problems of the largest companies in the world. Every single one of the Fortune 1000 today is working very deeply with at least one, if not more, usually 2.5, that's the average, Indian technology companies. India today has the lowest cost, best performing, population scale mobile broadband networks in the world. We don't develop, actually now we do, but we built this while not developing any telecom hardware and very little telecom software. And finally, as all of you know, we have the most advanced real-time digital payments network in the world. We didn't invent the payment gateway or any of the connectors, and it's entirely built on an open source framework. So here is the first investment thesis that we're super excited about. Applying AI products and services to solve the largest problems that the largest companies of the world have. We think that over the next 15 to 20 years, India will have at least $50 billion new companies that are going to solve problems of the largest companies around the world, AI first, products and services. And the reason I talk about this is because as entrepreneurs in India, and I think venture capitalists are also likely to blame for this, we've had this extraordinary aversion to services companies. Infosys, TCS, Wipro, HCL Technologies, Tech Mahindra, they all got built, by the way, with no venture capital. Well, guess what? It's back. And it's going to be back, its products and services, and it's AI first. For large enterprises, it's about taking things that they're already doing and automating it. Pick your favorite IT services company or BPO company today. They have over $1 billion coming from analytics. They have thousands of people working on helping large companies do analytics. Guess what? You need like 90% less people. But it's products and services, right? So that's the first big investment theme. So for all of you that are thinking, by the way, you know, India has 5 million software professionals in IT services. Single biggest thing we'd love to do is unleash them, unlock them, and let them loose and let them go free to go build products plus services for large enterprises. So that's the first thing. I think second is, look, we see product and platform-based companies really in 4 important areas. The first is what we call AI tooling and infrastructure. We've invested in a bunch of companies, some that you may know, these are very early stage companies. Infosys, they're building a GPU serverless platform. Today, you know, as you guys know, compute is very, very expensive, right? So they solved the cold start problem. They do it in a very, very interesting way. The best performance benchmarks in the world today of a serverless platform is a tiny little company out of Bangalore called Infosys. Another one is called True Foundry. They help large enterprises develop open source LLMs effectively better than anybody else, right? We think there's going to be hundreds of companies in this AI tooling and infrastructure. Now, how many of them can become really big? Kind of like depends. It depends on what the hyperscalers do. Depends on how differentiated their technology is. The second area is vertical AI applications. Every single industry, now by the way, some of these solutions will be products plus services. This is number 1 that I mentioned. But actually many of them will be just pure product companies, software product companies, okay? So let's take US healthcare, trillions of dollars spent in US healthcare. Arguably the most inefficient healthcare system in the world, by far. Well, the UK probably gets close. But what does that mean for entrepreneurs? It's an extraordinary opportunity. I'll give you 2 companies that are in our portfolio. We'll have many, but 2 that are focused on US healthcare. One is called Arintra. Tens of billions of dollars are spent by US hospital systems on medical coding, right? They take the procedure, they manually code it into something that they can submit to insurance. By the way, this is not an LLM problem. This is an NLP problem. It's not easy to do. It's also not like rocket science, right? Dr. Swami can do this in his sleep. Boom. Every single hospital starts using this. This is a $1 billion revenue company. Is it there? Of course not yet, but they just got started. Another company is called Redbrick, and this helps US AI startups as well as large hospitals and networks that are working on US AI healthcare just make annotations simpler. It's an MLOps platform for the US healthcare industry, one of the fastest growing startups that we have, right? We think just US healthcare can lead to hundreds of new Indian innovators that are going to focus on different aspects of US healthcare. And I'm talking US healthcare provider systems, okay? I'm not talking insurance, pharmaceuticals, medical devices. Same thing will happen in retail, in financial services, and the list goes on. So first is AI tooling infra on products, second is vertical software. The third one really is business software. Okay, business software today is boring and not intelligent. You know, I used to run sales teams for a long period of my life. Not a single person on my team ever liked to use Salesforce. I love Salesforce. I think Mark Benioff is fantastic. But salespeople just don't want to use Salesforce. Today, why do you need to use Salesforce? You can actually have natural language interfaces. By the way, don't get me wrong, phenomenal company, okay? It's just that it's software that was built in a different era. So in category after category, whether it's sales tech, whether it's MarTech, whether it's procurement tech, whether it's finance, you pick your favorite category, whether it's HR tech. We think that every single one of these categories will be reimagined with AI. By the way, in sales, we think Salesforce will actually do that first, but the reality is they can't do all of it. So that's the third. And the fourth one really comes to foundation models, right? It's companies like Sarvam. We do think that the large established players, be it OpenAI, be it Google, be it Amazon, plus some bunch of the startups will actually do have a head start. But we think that from India, we will still have unique opportunities, such as the one that Sarvam, there's about 3 or 4 startups today that are pursuing, that are trying to build Indic, actually today they launched their first product, Indic language LLMs, right? So these are sort of the pure play product and services opportunities. India today is just getting started. So Arvind, to your question, India as we speak has $20 billion of dry powder. That is 1.6 lakh crore of venture capital and dry powder, for those of you who don't know. That is capital that has already been raised by dedicated India funds waiting to be invested. And the number one theme that we're all going after is AI. So the time has come. We can't wait to see the next amazing AI entrepreneurs out of India. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajan. Thank you very much. And to add to what Rajan just said, I wear my venture capital hat. We have a fund of funds scheme in India, which is funding not just a lot of domestic funds. We have probably funded 140 funds so far. And as the funds then hear this and then start investing more in the AI companies, we see the value chain, the funding value chain really go and fund what is really solving for India. Let me thank all my keynote speakers. We are kind of keeping time, but we want to finish by 1:30 as I committed. I have one quick question. I have one quick, one or two questions from the audience over here. Anybody has a question? If you can ask the question, but I have the right to just park it and then ask the relevant speaker as and when the time permits. But if you can identify yourself and ask a question and not a commentary, please. Okay.
This question is addressing to Sriram. He's there? Yes. I was just talking to him. What is the antidote for future artificial intelligence problems?
Antidote to future artificial intelligence? Problems, okay.
In fact, I'm developing a framework for that. If anybody is interested, they can contact me.
Okay, AI protection. And what's your name, mister? Okay, Raju. I have noted your question down. Thank you. One more question. Yes. Go ahead, please.
Can I ask a... okay. Also a question to Sriram.
So you talked about regulating models versus regulating frameworks or systems. What is the timing situation there, that in terms of regulation?
No, just hold everybody.
Hi.
Yes, last question that, and then I'm going to, and I'll probably be very diverse. I need that lady to also ask a question.
Hi.
So third and fourth, yes.
I'm Ashish. I work on medical AI at Ashoka University, primarily directed at Professor Anandan, Mr. Anandan. So health
Which
has
Anandan?
P. Anandan.
Yeah. Dr. Anandan. Yeah.
So health is a very promising use case, but health also has very unique challenges. If a cat-dog classifier goes wrong, there's not much loss. But if a chemotherapy drug recommendation goes wrong, so how do you think about liability for Gen
That
AI?
kind of what Sriram also talked about. It's called risk-based regulation, but yes, I'll leave it.
And also drift and, out of distribution challenges.
Thank you. Last question
Yes,
to you.
Thank you. My question's also on I work on regulatory matters, and when it comes
Can
to
you identify yourself, ma'am?
my name is Tanvi Ratna. I
Tanvi,
run
yes,
an
Tanvi,
Hi,
help
sir.
Tanvi.
Yes. My quick question is, what we've seen from the recent toss-up also at OpenAI is when it comes to safety versus business model is going to win hands down in every contest, right? And that throws up very big challenges for regulators because it's already very difficult to rein in these models, but competing with these, what they call Moloch forces of business is even harder. So I would love to hear, since all of you really recommend...
Is your question to one particular person or should I choose? I can use AI to choose.
You could choose, sir. I think
Okay,
I'll
thank
trust
you.
judgment.
Thank you for giving me that power. Thank you very much, Tanvi. We'll quickly, before I call my panelists for the fireside chat, can I ask you, Sriram, to quickly comment on the AI protection risk-based regulation that you talked about? Then Dr. Anandan, in the specific, just take that further for the risk regulation in healthcare. And Rajan, maybe you can answer a little bit about the business models. Do we need to regulate at the business models level or more at the core foundational models? So, is that fair? Okay, please.
Yeah,
And Jay, how are we doing on time? Okay, thank you.
So from safety protection perspective, look, I think there's a lot of technology we to build, so I'm definitely interested in hearing what the antidote is. But I believe that we are at very, very early stages in really understanding how to do safety testing. In fact, we are very early in truly understanding how to do even quality evaluation. We have benchmarks out there, they all have their limitations. Finally, we see a big gulf between what the benchmarks say and what happens when you start to deploy. So I think there is a huge opportunity for new innovation around evaluation, safety,
Scoring.
red teaming, putting models in tough situations. So I am eager to learn more from that person, but other than to say that...
That is the lunch conversation.
The lunch conversation. The second point I think you wanted to make was around risk-based regulation. I think there was a question on timing. I think that timing statement actually is not specific to risk-based regulation at all. I think the broader question is, and this is a conversation I don't think I have an answer to, but what is the right time and level at which to regulate is a discussion every country is having. In a panel that I had the honor to facilitate this morning, that was the conversation with ministers from 3 different countries. And it was the same discussion. If I regulate too early before I even understand what the technology is going to do, then I will regulate it badly, stifle innovation, regulate the wrong things. At the same time, I have to distinguish between existential risks of the future versus real and present risks that are happening right now. And I cannot afford not to put safeguards for risks that are happening right now. So I think this is one of those tough balances. I don't think there is going to be a right point in time. I think we're all as a world going to discover how to evolve regulations to keep up with technology. That's the only answer.
And that's the challenge as a regulator always. So, Dr. Anandan. Yeah, I think it's working. No.
Yeah, hi. Think about healthcare. I think, the point you made is important, which is, of course, you can't randomly throw half-baked, unreliable technology and solutions in the health domain. However, health is a highly regulated, domain. you cannot actually go and offer a treatment or a drug or a therapy or anything without going through some strict regulatory control processes. So really, in some sense, it's a little bit safer than many other things because there is actually procedures for doing that. In India, ICMR would be the body that does that. So basically, when you develop these solutions, for example, recently, number of organizations have developed X-ray reading and of TB or other solutions, and they all outperform humans quite regularly, and they don't require a lot of training when you don't have to train the individuals because it's a solution that can be scaled. However, it's still not fully certified to be delivered, and I think it will be. It has to go through the regulatory approval process. So that's strict guidelines so you can feel safe.
Thank you, thank you. I have some bit of good news, if that is good news. We've just have been allocated some more time, so we'll have a lot of time for question answers because the power in this room has managed to delay the lunch a little bit. So sorry for you, Rajan, but Rajan, you're up next to answer the question on business models and funding, maybe.
Yeah, so I think, firstly, by the way, on this question of regulation, what India should not do is regulate as per requirements of big tech. Okay?
Good to hear you say that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, really important because, at the end of the day, what happens is, I think Sriram mentioned this, the single biggest strategic question for India from an AI standpoint is open versus closed. That is the single biggest question, okay? Because we don't have the scientists yet, we don't have the extraordinary compute power, we don't have the extraordinary capital to compete against, companies that have been investing in this for decades. So I think it's just because there's a bunch of questions around regulation, and if you ask me, when we have CEOs of tech companies come to India and say proactively regulate, I worry a little bit about that. Why are they asking for regulation in a different country? So it's just something for all of us to think a little bit about.
I'm going to get into the conversation. See, Rajan, and you mentioned that, and that's the reason I'm kind of reiterating that point. We had two big payment players in India with hundreds of years of history, about $1 trillion of market cap between the two. We still outdid them. UPI does more payments than all of them combined together.
No, agreed. So, Arvind, the only thing
your point is well taken, and I know what you're saying. And what I'm saying is this: today we understand what is good for India. Everybody talks about it globally, and we do that. It could be good for big tech, and that's good. But if not, what is good for India is the primary important.
No, I think exactly right. So by the way, I do think that the leading payments players in the world will have virtually no presence in India by the end of this decade, right? And
I didn't say that.
You didn't say that. I did. It's okay. I can say I can say a lot of things you can't say. I can now say a lot of things you can't say.
Yeah.
I used to not be able to say these.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and by the way, I'm not saying. Look, I think India has won in some of these spaces because we've created a true open system. Okay. So with UPI, the best player wins.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think with AI, what we should do is create an environment where the best player wins. Right? And you level the playing field so that any entrepreneur is not disadvantaged because they don't have $5 billion to go spend, or they can't, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's the thing we need to do. I think on your business models, look, I think as investors, look, we are the simplest human beings you will find. Okay? We are not complicated. We want to find extraordinary entrepreneurs who are trying to solve real problems. And then we want to invest in them. So we try not to complicate. We don't have LLMs and all that built yet. Eventually we will. We'll have the AI investor.
That will be after
that'll be a complicated investor.
After your carry is over. So, any case, I want to call in, you'll have a lot more time for question answers. I know, Shriram, you wanted to comment on something. If you want to just add to that. In the meanwhile, can I request Ananta to introduce our panelists which are going to join on stage now for the fireside chat, please.
Yeah, just literally one comment that I think the important recognition is that open is not as if antithesis to be having to have a commercial model and make money. They are not at all antithetical at all. I think we have enough proof points of that, including a company that IBM bought for $34 billion, whose entire business model is based on open. So I hope that we all recognize that, and that's why I wanted to spend time on open, because I truly believe,
We are with
not
you,
just
we're
in
with
an
you.
India context, but globally, that it's the right thing for AI.
Thank you.
No, agreed.
Ananta, please.
Open and bankrupt is a bad place to be,
Yep.
you know?
Thank you, esteemed guests, for your thought-provoking remarks and inspiring address. We shall now transition to the second part of the side session, which is a fireside chat. And for that, I would like to invite Mr. Rajan Navani, CEO, Jet Synthesis, Mr. Anil Nanduri, Vice President, GM, Worldwide Consumption, Data Center, AI Solutions, Intel, and Ms. Sindhu Gangadharan, President and Chief Product Officer, Industries and CRM, SAP. She will be joining us virtually.
Do we have the name tags for Rajan and for Anil? I saw them somewhere. They're there. We can pass them along, please. Thank you. Yeah, so that we identify the right Rajans and thank you, Ananta. Let me request you, Anil, to... sorry.
So one clarification, so sorry. Ms. Sindhu Gangadharan is the SVP of SAP India Labs. Just a correction. I hope that's okay, ma'am.
All good. Let's go ahead.
We have Ms. Sindhu behind us. So this is a fireside chat. We are going to build upon what we just heard from the 4 keynote speakers. And I'm going to start with Anil. Anil, and then come to Sindhu and then to Rajan you. That's the kind of sequence we're going to follow. Anil, you represent data center solutions at Intel, and one of the questions that keep coming up a lot is that how is a company like Intel looking at green technology, efficient systems, and specifically, given the context of the compute that is required going forward, how do you make it more environment friendly and sustainable? So can you talk about that? I had 2 students outside who asked me this question that, the computing power that will be required to build these models will be so high in the future. We heard from IBM some petabytes of the data that Watson is processing. So is this all going to be in Iceland and Finland or wherever else, or do we have a better solution going forward?
Thank you. And Anil Nanduri, I work at Intel, and we make a lot of AI and high-performance scale solutions that drive a lot of this compute from a silicon standpoint. So, sustainability is a very, very important aspect for the tech industry, right? It's not, we talk a lot about, AI for good, responsible AI, trustable AI, but AI that is sustainable is something which is fundamental and foundational for this ecosystem to be innovating on. We at Intel have a very strong, decades of leadership work in sustainability. By 2040, and as you know, we build silicon. We have a lot of manufacturing, process technology, supply chain. So across all our operations, we have ambitious goals of by 2040 to be net zero emissions across all our operations. Now, we are starting to use some of this technology to implement into building management as well, using AI technologies into our data, into our centers where we do a lot of R&D in India. So both our facilities in Bangalore and Hyderabad are LEED certified. And what we have in Bangalore is 10,000 sensors collecting real-time data for managing lighting, temperature, the energy consumption aspects of it. And what we've used AI for is to combine that sensor data with human presence, knowing where the people are during COVID when people were not there, as people return to the workforces, which parts of the building need the power, how do you make it efficiency, All of these aspects are using AI technology today in real world to actually apply. Now, as we look at it, there's different forms of AI. So these have been more traditional deep learning and machine learning models, not LLM based, but as we evolve, it's going to get more and more smarter. Now, as regards to looking at scale of, you talked about these compute requirements. Now, when we talk about LLMs, right, and I don't know how many of you are aware of how much data center compute is actually available in India for Indian use. So I know there's aspirations for building large language models. I think one of the key inhibitors and enablers should actually become is how do I make that compute available locally here for the local use. And I know the government is trying hard to break that through as an infrastructure, but it's going to be fundamental to unleash that creativity for all your billions of dollars to be invested in. This is going to be one of the biggest blockers in access to compute, right? And now, how do you make that sustainable, right? The power of this compute for AI is doubling at around every 6 months, okay? And every 6 months. And Moore's law, for how many of you are familiar with Moore's law?
It's all broken.
Yeah, it's every 2 years that the performance was doubling, right? How do you do this? And that's why innovation in architectures, innovation in new kinds of solutions, software optimizations, everything is being put at it to deliver this demand and meet the compute needs. And to make it sustainable is how you do energy density. So we've been air-cooled servers, now moving to liquid cooling, and then going into even immersion cooling, which is you dip these servers in oil and you run it so that you can actually run without having to create more energy to actually cool these systems, and have some kind of a system where you can have these cooling mechanisms built in where they recycle its own cooling. So these are the kinds of innovations, sorry, I know it took a little long answer, but kind of things that are coming in to bring to scale.
No, thank you, Anil, and makes sense. Intel being Intel, I think you play a very important role in ensuring a more sustainable compute as we go along. Sindhu, can you hear me? Can you confirm you can hear me? Thank you for the thumbs up. Can you talk to us about SAP in India and the kind of green vision SAP has in India, and what kind of sustainability efforts you're doing with SAP labs in Bangalore and otherwise in India?
Okay, sure. But first of all, it has been extremely exciting to listen into the earlier keynotes. I just want to also comment on what Mr. Anandan, you said, what did you say, business software is getting boring? I just wanted to pick up on that. And on the contrary, business software is getting even more exciting, Mr. Anandan, when it comes to leveraging Gen AI. And I mean, if you mentioned that also you mentioned some of the vendors.
So Sindhu, just to interrupt, that comment was meant knowing that you are going to recommend
I
on
know.
that.
That's why I have
I
to.
can be a little bit of a Arnab Goswami moment for me. So
Me too.
please do comment on it. Disagree with Rajan Anandan. That's your prerogative. Please do that. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I just wanted to also call up, I mean, first of all, right, I mean, if you just look at India and SAP's context in India, Mr. Gupta, so the largest R&D hub for SAP outside our headquarters in Germany is in India, right? And a lot of the things what we heard about from an India context is the reason why we are the largest here in India. In fact, a lot of the innovations that's happening on the AI front is happening right here in India for the world from SAP Labs India. And a couple of things which besides the whole topic of sustainability, I mean, if I just look at the whole core of ERP, right? One of the things where we are clearly reaping the benefits of whole AI, I mean, AI itself has been around for a long time, but now with Gen AI coming into the mix, right? Areas like digital supply chain. So if you look at simple processes like document information extraction service, I mean, this is something where we've been able to use Gen AI to completely automate processing of documents with high level of accuracy and efficiency, right? And because a lot of times the question is also about how much did we bring that cost down to? Just with this one simple use case, right? In the core of ERP, we brought down the operational cost down to 55%. So for example, if you estimate that a customer who is receiving 50 pages of delivery notes every truck that comes in, right, and 1,000 daily deliveries, we're talking about saving almost 300,000 euros per factory annually. Or if you mentioned also about HR tech earlier on, right? Now, if I just look at how we focus on human interactions rather than administrative tasks, when you look at SAP and how we have kind of completely infused HR solutions with Gen AI, we are allowing managers to spend their time more with humans rather than on the workflows that kind of use up all of their time, right? Saving up to several hours even for things like how would you post a job description. Today, I mean, we want to eliminate that complete bias in how job descriptions are being put out there. So which means, if I just take again some numbers, right, for a 50,000 employee company posting thousands of openings every single year, we're talking about an estimated productivity savings of over 400,000 euros. Or if I look at two areas like, what else, like category management. I mean, you know, in the field, you have category managers who needs to show efficiency on higher outcomes per category. And now, if I take a simple process for a category manager, they can be equipped with all the information that they need to jumpstart their category plans, applying all the market dynamics, cost structure insights. And again, I love calling out the savings because just with this capability, they've been able to reduce 56% of onboarding time and 70% more category coverage and more than 2.3x of cost savings. You mentioned Salesforce and how they'll be the first ones to kind of disrupt everything around customer experience. But now if I just look at SAP, right, we're taking customer engagement to entirely new levels as we speak. Because today customers can enhance their service and efficiency through very tailored recommendations to their inquiries. This is already happening as we speak, right? It's nothing that's rocket science or anything like that. But today, if our own sales teams and solutions advisors have saved close to 20% effort leveraging AI for all their daily tasks like account briefings and preparing emails and all of that. So just wanted to call out there's lots more use cases, but coming to sustainability, Mr. Gupta, what you asked me, today SAP is, I'd say in two fronts, right? We've always, at the core of our philosophy, we've always believed in running in a sustainable manner. And two, given that 500,000 customers in the world run on SAP, and 98% of business transactions of the world touch an SAP system, it's our responsibility to ensure that we build in sustainability into the core of our business processes. So as an enabler, right? So two things, one, as an exemplar in terms of how we run, and two, as an enabler for this. And today, as an exemplar, if I just reflect on Labs India itself, here 98% of our operations on our campus runs on green energy sources, right? And we're using our own technology to be able to monitor and administer, making sure how are we working towards our KPIs. Our second campus that's coming up in Bangalore will be completely carbon neutral in operations. And two, as an exemplar, like I said, given 500,000 customers of the world run on SAP, what we are doing is bringing in those sustainability metrics into the core of our business processes. So which means if you're looking at somebody like a chief procurement officer or a chief HR officer, every decision that they make, right, can be done in a very sustainable manner. So you want to make sure that the suppliers that you pick result in make sure that you still keep the costs that you have in mind, but at the same time also make sure that they are suppliers that meet your carbon targets that you have set for yourself. So visibility down to the core of the process for the business user and giving that power to the business user to decide is something that we do. So just in a nutshell, I just wanted to put it out there, Mr. Gupta.
Thank you, Sindhu. And I think it's great to hear your views, and believe me, I think what you say adds a lot of value to this discussion. I'm going to get Mr. Rajan Navani into the conversation. Rajan, you run a media and entertainment business also, and you know, a different perspective. You are a user of all this AI, the computing power, especially to generate dynamic content and more gaming, more entertainment. What's your take on all of this? Is it really becoming democratic? It is really something that you feel businesses like yourself can afford this, or just where do you think the value of efficiency versus the cost?
No, thank you, Arvind. And actually today's session, what you call productization and scaling, really talks a lot to this segment, that we're talking. So through jet synthesis, we touch 1 in 3 Indians, through our products and services, and particularly the Gen Zs, the digital always generation. And we engage them in manners which are very relevant to today's day and age, shorter term durations, very distracted user base, and the role of AI there, particularly in terms of being able to curate and personalize experiences, is something that we've been hearing along, right? But to really be able to deliver that at scale through multiple products, I think is the excitement around what we are doing. And particularly, Arvind, to your point that in India, where we will have digital public infrastructure, where we will look at OpenAI, right? How do we really use some of these consumer sentiments, to be able to drive better outcomes, better engagement? And once we are able to, categorize media entertainment effectively, I think a lot of education, infotainment, a lot of larger good can, to my mind, also be accomplished through this whole infotainment kind of a wave that we are seeing, globally. So it's a very exciting times, and it's interesting because the industry is getting badly disrupted too. Recently, many of you must have heard there was a whole strike in Hollywood, where screenwriters and actors and others also went, on strike because the technology that is coming in and this entire industry is actually affecting screenwriters, story writers, because there's not going to be any need for any of them, right? And as you look at, digital avatars and twins and the ability to create, stories that will connect with people, originality in some way will be lost because this will probably be captured through, stories that already exist in the world, but in some way infringing on, some sort of an IP of someone. And all of that clarity will emerge over a period of time. But the disruption and the opportunity, the challenges, as well as the ability to be able to convert, a lot of this, which was earlier more being able to just predict what consumers would need, to now with generative AI actually delivering it in near real time, is really shaping this industry at a nutshell, very, very strongly. My own experience with AI, since Sriram was talking about, remote sensing and satellites, and started with when I was at NASA, and we were looking at, how do you predict the amount of corn that would be developed, or, in a state like Indiana, and through that extrapolate, what it would mean for the world in terms of commodities and how to price that way back in the 90s, right? And I still remember multiple times AI has touched my life in different ways, and every time it's been a different, understanding of that. And I must say, since we are sitting here in India at a very prime time when, our Honorable Prime Minister is pushing this agenda, in an interaction with him in 2008, which was a 2.5-hour interaction, and Arvind, you might know that, when C.K. Prahlad and I, we spent time, talking about the future of India, in India at 75, which was now celebrated as the Amrit Mahotsav, he used the word AI.
Absolutely.
It was, he was still the Chief Minister of Gujarat, and he said, Dili aenge to karenge. But today, as India at 100, as we move towards Viksit Bharat, how will new transformative technologies like AI, in addition to multiple emerging technologies, shape the ecosystem is what is exciting. So in media entertainment, particularly what I do see, Arvind, is that, as we see quantum mechanics becoming much larger, quantum computing making, the entire opportunity of processing billions of times faster, right? As you go fundamentally, it's not, you see what you get actually, and not what, get what you see, as a big shift in the qubit actually becoming 0, 1 at any point in time, changing the way, the entire world will shape up, bringing immersive technologies, VR, AR, moving together. So I think this particular sector is going to be massively disrupted and continue to innovate And AI is going to be at a very core base of this, large change. And I see that actually then translating into many other areas of the digital life of people, where Jetsons is building other areas in wellness tech and livelihoods generation. And I think all of these, in some shape and form will definitely interconnect, because as we see communities, that get built across different interests, the ability to deliver solutions also will cross point from there on. So very exciting times for this sector.
And very scary sometimes with the deepfakes and everything else. So that's for a different panel. We won't discuss here, because that itself is a long discussion. But thank you, Rajan. I'm going to, as promised, keep a few questions now for the audience. We had 4 or 5 questions earlier. Now we have a bigger group. So if you have questions, please identify yourself, and I will do the allocation to our speakers, please.
Hi, my name is Shubhoy. I'm from a company called Gramvani.
Yeah, go ahead, Shubhoy.
Okay, so my question is for Mr. Rajan Anandan. So we build software solutions we work with NGOs and we build software solutions for masses. And we know that Gen AI or AI can help us in scaling that solution for masses. Now the challenge which we face is like the paying capacity for the end user is extremely low. However, the operational cost of these LLMs is substantially high. So is there any business model which can cover the cost of the LLM at the same time keep catering to the end customer who has very
question.
low...
Is this for both the Anandans, I'm assuming? Yeah. I will come to the answers. Yes, a couple of more questions. I know there is a raised hand in the back. Yes.
Hi, thank you so much. This was so lovely session. My name is Lakshmi and I am currently a research scholar at MDI Gurgaon, and I'm working on the adoption of artificial intelligence, especially in healthcare. So sir, my question is, how can sustainability and AI adoption go hand in hand, especially in the healthcare context when it's a very, very critical sector?
Thank you.
State
Thank
a
you.
few examples.
Thank you. And one question from this gentleman over here, because he has been raising his hand for long. So thank you for being patient, my friend. Go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah. So actually, there are 2 pressing problems before the government nowadays. The number one is that the population of Delhi is around 32 million population is there in the Delhi with a limited residential space. So this real estate has become a big problem here. So how does an AI helps us to resolve the problem of this real estate allocation or this real estate?
Urban planning.
Yes.
Okay.
And the second one is that which we are facing on a daily basis is kind of the fraudulent documents. Means there are a lot of fraudulent documents coming to the government with fraud academic degrees, fraud certificates and all that. So how does AI helps in resolving all those things? Thank you.
So they're not using DigiLocker, I'm assuming, right? That's why they're fraudulent. They first need to go on DigiLocker. Okay, that's okay. Good question. Now, I'm going to park the questions here. We are just going to run out of time. Let me start with reverse. AI and document verification. Maybe that's a comment, Dr. Anandan. And maybe you can combine that with the first question on how do you make it sustainable for the end user, especially if the purpose is societal goals, societal benefits. And Rajan, you can weigh in. Would venture capitalists be eager to fund such a thing which has very little, sometimes, commercial value coming in? How do you fund such things? Do we have to go to the foundations to fund it? So maybe the 2 questions you can do a jugalbandi and answer that for us.
Yeah, no, I think I can answer from our experience the challenges with respect to creating a sustainable economic model for social sector work. The answer is, unfortunately, we don't have a good answer. But, you can break it down, I think, into 3 parts. One is to the point that was made by the speaker, the questioner. The development of these technologies, when they are for social sectors, have to be heavily subsidized. They cannot be based on some assumption of capital, that's available that will be eventually, recovered through market. It's not going to happen in the near future. So either government or, donor organizations or whoever needs to do this. And if, look at the 3 use cases I mentioned, they are all supported that way, and that's the only reason they have been able to do. And in that thinking, those donor organizations and, angel investors, whoever, has to have a long-term view. The second is actually the payment model. Ultimately, it's offsetting some costs that are incurred by the current system, by governments, by hospitals. Not taking care of people doesn't mean that it's cheap. It actually has its own cost. So ultimately, it has to be developed, recovered through that means, which is again coming to public sector. So there probably have to some payment mechanism through governments actually for these services that are offered, by these things. And the last is, I think, this is a little bit of a optimistic view. Ultimately, if these problems are solved, they will reduce poverty and other kinds of issues, which should increase the capacity for payment. But that's just a long-term.
No, but how many of you over here know Akshay Patra? Anybody? A lot of you. So this is what Dr. Anandan is saying. Some of the government funds, because that's the kind of cost we have allocated, and then the innovation comes around it and gets some other gap funding and makes it viable. So those are the things we'll have to be innovative on, apart from technology and AI, is how do you make it funding sustainable. Rajan.
So I think something like this, venture capitalists would not fund. So I think you should, pursue grants. The good thing is there are a lot of grants for things like this. And then on your cost, use Sarvam, 1/10 the cost of anything else out there. If it's in Indian languages, just use Sarvam.
Shriram, a question to you. I'm going to take lead from the researcher at MDI. How there are certain verticals which will need a lot more of safety and regulation and attention vis-a-vis many other verticals. If I'm doing ticketing and travel, it has a user experience. If I'm doing a large healthcare as oncology or something else, it has to have different mechanisms. And that's basis on your point of risk-based regulation. What are your thoughts on that? Especially what verticals do you see will need to watch out for when it comes to regulation? Healthcare is obvious, but beyond that.
Yeah, I think in general the domains where we see a lot of regulation today are also going to be the domains where even with AI. In fact, it goes back to this fundamental question of, is this approach to AI regulation around creating some dedicated AI regulatory body, or it is about taking existing regulatory bodies who understand what it means to regulate healthcare, regulate telecom, regulate banking sector, and empower them with the tools and the technologies and the know-how to think about it. So I think that is the right way. Specifically around safety, I go back to this 3-part thing I said. There is the algorithms and the techniques which the computer scientists will invent. But what is the right metric to use for that use case is something only the domain expert. What is acceptable is not something the computer scientist can determine. It has to be a domain expert. So which is why for me, I go back to my, if you will, mantra on open. Without the ability for domain experts to inform some of these things, this will remain magic boxes. So evaluation metrics, safety metrics, testing, these have to be tools have to be created in the open, and they have to be customized by region, by industry, by use case. That's the only practical way that I think this will move forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the patient audience. Let's have a great round of applause for my panelist here and my virtual panelist on the screen. And with that, I'm going to invite folks from CIA and USIBC to give a thank you note. Who goes first? USIBC, Alexander, floor is all yours. Thank you, folks. Thank you for being here. We've already done the photograph, so if you, please, all of you, they're going to be around for lunch. So please let them have lunch, but please ask your questions, interact with them. Okay, we need you to stay here.
If you can permit me a moment of comic relief, and Rajan is not on the menu for lunch, despite the nature of today's conversation. My name is Alexander Slater, and I'm the Managing Director of the U.S.-India Business Council. I lead our team on the ground here in Delhi and have been in India for 4 years. I was born in New York City and am married to an Indian national, and my son was actually born in Delhi in 2021. So I am, in many ways these days, the embodiment of the U.S.-India relationship, and it's a pleasure to be part of these events and be doing what I'm doing these days, because the strategic partnership between the two countries really is a driving force for stability and prosperity in the world today. And USIBC is at the middle of that. The two governments have done a wonderful job this year building out frameworks to take forward bilateral discussions and partnerships on critical and emerging technologies and innovation. Two of these, for example, are the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies, which the two leaders, President Biden and Prime Minister Modi, hatched in 2022 on the sidelines of a Quad summit, and was launched at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, USIBC's parent affiliate, in Washington, D.C. in January of this year. And the second one is, which has its core focus, by the way, artificial intelligence. And the second one was done on the sidelines of the APEC summit last month in San Francisco, where I had the privilege to be with Minister Goyal and his counterpart from the United States, Secretary Raimondo, where we launched the Innovation Handshake. And all of the entities that you see represented here today were part of these discussions. Companies, people focused on social development, venture capital firms. These are the entities that are really going to take forward the U.S.-India partnership in critical and emerging technologies and innovative sectors. And so it's been a real privilege for us to be a part of this. We wanted to thank METI for inviting us to help create this panel and produce it together. The staff from METI have done a fantastic job in making sure this is going well today. I'm particularly grateful to the folks at USIBC, Jay Gullish, Aditya Kaushik, and Simu Gaduru, who form our incomparable digital economy team, who put together events like this. And I'd also like to thank our speakers. I come from a mixed world myself. I've worked in the corporate sector, in the association sector, and the development sector. Before I came to USIBC, I was at the World Bank for 5 years. So it really was heartening for me to see our speakers today cover topics about the commercialization of AI, its impact on science, and of course the way it can help promote social development and economic development by helping the poorest. And so this to me is the kind of conversations we at USIBC really take pleasure in curating and hope to see them being taken forward over the next year. I know Jay in particular is about to launch an AI initiative that we will be hosting next year. And so we invite all of you here to contact Jay and learn more about it. And look forward to working with all of our members here today on that work. And thank you very much also for the Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence. I know India's leadership of GPAI this year is going to be critical to accomplishing the main objectives that all of our speakers here talked about. An AI that produces efficiency, is safe, and is transparent. Thank you all very much.
Good afternoon. What an amazing discussion and panel discussion and keynote speeches we had. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Shuktej Singh Rao. I represent CII. I look after digital and space industries in India for CII. Distinguished speakers, it has been a great pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much that you took out time from your busy schedules and gave us your own perspectives on different aspects of AI productization and scaling up of AI solutions. I must make a special mention of our moderator, Arvind Gupta. Arvind, it is such a pleasure to have you moderate and to hear you. You made this a beautiful discussion today. Special thanks to Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology for holding this GPAI summit and giving us this opportunity to support them in organizing this. To USIBC, Alexander, Jay, for your great support. It was super fun working with you guys. Delegates and all other members, thank you so much. Have a nice day ahead. Thank you.